significances of the first invocation, which is let the forces of light bring illumination to mankind. They look like simple words, friends, but what they refer to is far deeper than what the words reveal. So let's explore that. Ike tells us that this great invocation, in other words, this first invocation, has been used by hierarchy since the year 1425, though it is thousands of years older than that. Owing, however, to the unreadiness of humanity to cooperate in its use, the results have been delayed. So today, and he was writing this in 1939, they can precipitate if right cooperation can be extended by humanity, and such cooperation now seems immediately possible. The first phrase, let the forces of light bring illumination, are found on the monadic levels. So who are these forces of light on the monadic level? They are, or they include Sanat Kumara, the Lord of the world. They include the representatives of the 7 sacred planets, representing the 7 rays, as well as the 3 Kumaras, or the 3 Buddhas of activity, and the 3 representatives within the limits of our hierarchy are the Manu, the focal point of the first ray of will, the Christ, the head of hierarchy, and the representative of the second ray of love, and thirdly, the Lord of civilization, the expression of the third ray of active intelligence. So when disciples and the world aspirants use this invocation, this first rays takes us straight to hierarchy, which is the intermediate center between us, humanity, and Shambhala, through its 3 representatives, the Manu, the Christ, and Master R. It serves then to emphasize and establish a close rapport, blending and fusing the human and the hierarchical centers. So when this takes place, that is, hierarchical center and the human center are blended and fused, then hierarchy can use this great invocation with greater potency and can carry the relation to a higher state still and produce a blending with Shambhala, where the focused energy of the forces of light serves to provide great reservoirs of light and love. Now, up to now, they haven't been made available for planetary distribution, owing to the lack of established relation between the 3 centers, humanity, hierarchy, and Shambhala. That relation is now becoming somewhat established. And hopefully by now, today, it's a little bit more established than what it was in 1939 when this was written. The inflow of light and love to humanity is now possible if the disciples and aspirants of the world can be led to make the needed effort to stand in spiritual being, that is, as a soul, and from that poised, attentive attitude to invoke these great entities. Then the spirit of peace can be invoked. So the forces of light on the monadic levels from Shambhala, they express themselves through hierarchy on the Buddhic levels. And their major effect is the illumination of the minds of men with love and light. And this precipitates upon the mental plane. The personality of humanity is thereby pervaded and illumined. Thus, the third great planetary center, that is humanity, becomes creative and magnetic. And two divine aspects, intelligence and love, will reach fruition upon the physical plane, making it possible for the first aspect and the will of God, understood by humanity as the plan, to be consciously carried forward on earth in conformity with the activity instituted at Shambhala. The will of God is purpose, and this is for the first time to be recognized consciously by men. Our duty is to learn rightly to contact the hierarchy via our own souls, rightly to use the great invocation as souls, and rightly to render ourselves responsive to and sensitive to the resultant effects. So during the week, let's ponder on that statement. The second phrase, let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. The spirit of peace, understood by the ordinary man, just means peace. You know, no fighting. But according to the ageless wisdom, the spirit of peace, or the spirit of equilibrium, as he is also called, is an extra-planetary being of terrific cosmic potency. He is that mysterious and divine entity with whom the Christ came in touch, and whose influence played through him at the time that he earned the right to be called the Prince of Peace. In the Garden of Gethsemane, 2000 years ago, the Christ established for the very first time in planetary history a contact between hierarchy, humanity, Shambhala, and the spirit of peace in his own high place. Christ then focused in himself the two major divine attributes and aspects, will and love, or Atma Buddhi. And because of this, his consciousness became extra-planetary, as is the consciousness of Sanat Kumara. And this achievement enabled him to put humanity in touch with the spirit of peace. He thus himself became the light of the world and the Prince of Peace. So the Christ, through his ability to express the will of God in love and as world salvage, established the first major link with the spirit of peace. He is then the agent of the spirit of peace, as the latter overshadows the Christ, who serves as a channel for his directed potency, as he will not descend from his high place, because he can only respond to groups, to hierarchy. So just as the great Lord of love and the Son of God, the Christ, used as his vehicle of expression on earth the body or the form of Master Jesus, so this great extraplanetary life, the spirit of peace, can be enabled on a higher turn of the spiral to use as his vehicle of expression the form, the etheric body of the Christ, the Prince of Peace. And he will definitely be using the physical body of Christ when Christ reappears. Thus, his stupendous energies will be stepped down through the medium of the Lord of Love and become available to the mass of men. He is destined to bring peace eventually upon earth through the expression of goodwill, which will bring about right human relations. The spirit of peace will, when the right time comes, will vitalize the responsiveness of humanity via the influence of hierarchy to the will of God, which has for basic intent the bringing of peace on earth. So what is peace? According to the age's wisdom, it's essentially the establishing of right human relations, of synthetic rapport with its resultant cooperation, of correct interplay between the three planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, and an illumined, loving understanding of the will of God as it affects humanity and works out divine intent. So the Buddha, through his achievement of illumination, established the first major link with the forces of light, while the Christ, through his ability to express the will of God in love and as world salvage, established the first major link with the spirit of peace. So through the Christ and the Buddha, humanity can now establish a close relationship with Shambhala and make its own contribution as a world center to the planetary life. Pervaded by light and controlled by the spirit of peace, the expression of humanity's will to good can emanate powerfully through this third planetary center, humanity. Thus, humanity will become eventually the planetary savior, as is our destiny, as the third planetary center. May men of goodwill everywhere meet in the spirit of cooperation. This third phrase refers to the third planetary center, humanity itself, to the flow of goodwill and right human relations. So the three aspects of divinity in men achieve practical expression through the influence of the great invocation. So let's have a look. The third aspect of divinity through humanity as goodwill, as the practical and possible expression of love demonstrating on earth, evoking right relationship. The second aspect of divinity, expressed through hierarchy as light, as the expression of hierarchy pouring into the human consciousness, irradiating all dark places and evoking a response from all forms of life in the three worlds of manifestation and in the three subhuman kingdoms through the medium of the fourth human kingdom. And the first aspect of divinity is expressed then through Shambhala, through peace, as the expression of the will of Shambhala, producing balance, equilibrium, synthesis and understanding, plus a spirit of invocation, which is basically an action producing reaction. So this demonstrates as the first great creative and magical work of which humanity is capable, swinging as it does all three divine aspects into a simultaneous activity in line with the will of God. May forgiveness. Fourth sentence. Now the word forgiveness to us just means to pardon, very ordinarily. But the Ageless Wisdom uses forgiveness in its original meaning, which signifies simply to give for. Now, if we look at the origin of the word to forgive, it originates from the Old English forgiven, meaning to give, to grant, to allow, to remit a debt. And there it is, pardon an offense. From two words, for, here meaning completely, and gifan, meaning to give. Now the Romance languages such as French, Spanish, Italian, etc., they also have the same word. In modern French, pardonner comes from the vulgar Latin perdonare, which means to give wholeheartedly. And it stems from the Pi root word per, meaning forward, hence through, and donare, which means give as a gift, from the root word do, meaning to give. So you see that the word to forgive in its original meaning means to give completely. So it's not a synonym for pardon. Later on, it has taken on this meaning. And according to DK, it has been distorted in theological circles to mean this. But forgiveness is sacrifice, and it's the giving up of oneself, even of one's very life, for the sake of others and for the good of the whole group. So then This fourth phrase literally means, may all men everywhere respond to the keynote of the universe and give themselves for others. Manifestation in itself, the great forgiveness. Now, this is a big statement. Let's say that again. Manifestation is itself the great forgiveness. That is, these stupendous lives outside manifested existence entered into manifestation in order to give themselves for the lesser lives and forms of existence, in order that these lesser lives might be enabled to proceed onward towards a goal which is known to deity alone, and thus eventually reach high places of spiritual expression. So this is the whole idea behind manifestation. It's the giving of the life of the solar logos. And of course, beyond even the solar logos, the one whom naught may be said. So you see how forgiveness is a lot deeper than we thought originally. Therefore, forgiveness or sacrifice in order to save others is increasingly the recognized, needed keynote at this time. And in this recognition lies much to justify the sorry story of past evolutionary processes and methods. And when it is recognized that the giving for involves right living, that is selfless living upon the physical plane, and not, as it is so often thought, the dying of the physical body, then we shall have a revitalized world. It is the sacrifice day by day in the process of daily living which can save the world of men. The sacrifice of selfish personal interests for the good of the whole, and the giving up of one's practical life to the salvation of the world. So in many ways, therefore, this fourth sentence of the Great Invocation is of paramount importance to not only the individual, but to humanity as well, invoking as it does great vital potencies, the forces of light, hierarchy, the spirit of peace, indicating process, sacrifice, and purpose, plus the identification of the unit and the group with a basic intent of manifestation, selfless life. The energies that are released by the use of these four sentences are related to the planetary centers, and they are also related to the chakras. So let's have a look at that. The first, let the forces of light, refers therefore to Shambhala, invokes the forces of light in Shambhala. And that's related to the head center. Let the spirit of peace relates to hierarchy, therefore to the heart center, as hierarchy is the heart of Shambhala. And may men of goodwill everywhere relates to humanity or invokes humanity. And that relates to the throat center, because humanity is the throat center of the planet. Mere forgiveness on the part of all men relates in the individual man and humanity as a whole. And it relates to the ajna center. If you remember, ajna is the sublimation of the throat and the heart. So in humanity, then, we fuse these two centers, hierarchy and humanity, and we blend heart and throat energies. So then the ajna begins to function dynamically, governing and directing the individual energies once any real measure of personality integration has been achieved. So you see the three, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, are being invoked here. And as we say it, it unites Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, but it also unites our head, heart, throat via the ajna center. And the fifth phrase, let power attend the efforts of the great ones. This effect in the hierarchy is a relatively new one. And it's due to the participation of humanity in the process of invocation, thus producing new effects and contexts. It is the united effort of the two great centers which is of such paramount importance, and upon which I desire to have you concentrate, says DK. This fusing of humanity and hierarchy, absolutely essential. Its utterance by men throws the weight of human appeal and desire behind the age-old efforts of the hierarchy. And this is now for the first time truly possible on a large scale. Hierarchy and humanity are at last en rapport. So the practical significance of these two these two sentences, may forgiveness and let power. So let's have a look at the first one. What's the practical significance of may forgiveness on the part of all men be the keynote at this time? Now, this phrase serves to arouse humanity as a planetary center to activity and to realization. And it's related to the effect in humanity. Whereas let power attend the efforts of the great ones serves to aid the hierarchy in its ancient efforts, so that the two, hierarchy and humanity, can then be related to each other's magnetic fields and produce a blending and a synthesis which will lead to a fuller expression of the soul of divinity through the medium of humanity. Again, we are being asked to ponder on that statement. Humanity and hierarchy coming together in each other's magnetic field produces a synthesis which leads then to the fuller expression of the soul of humanity. And this is definitely related to the effect in hierarchy of a constructive use of the great invocation. And the last phrase, so let it be, we are asserting that this is the will of the Logos. So let it be. Let the fiat of the Lord be. Let the will of the Logos be done. And help us, therefore, to do our part. So we want to invoke hierarchy to help us to cooperate with them. So the established relation between the three centers, humanity, hierarchy, and Shambhala, is now becoming somewhat established. So the inflow of light and love to humanity is now possible if the disciples and aspirants of the world can be led to make the needed effort to stand in spiritual being, that is, as a soul. And from that poised, attentive attitude as the soul, to invoke these great entities. Forget not, Dike tells us, that the saying of the great invocation has to be a group endeavor and must be carried forward in cooperation with hierarchy, as it involves also the recognition in our mind that the soul is one, that there is no such thing as my soul, thy soul, your soul, but there is only one soul, only our soul, that is the soul of humanity and the soul of hierarchy, united as one. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that we can only say these invocations when we are in a group. In esoteric healing, Dike reminds us that it's not always necessary or possible to meet or work together in group formation. He realizes that it's not possible. But he tells us that this work, so this work of esoteric healing, and in our case here, saying the great invocation, can be carried forward efficiently and potently if the members work as a subjective group. Each unit should then follow the instructions each day, and as if he were working in his group in tangible form. So the real linking is brought about by imagining himself. So the disciple imagines himself to be in the presence of his brothers. Thank you, friends. There's a lot in there.